You ever do something so monumentally stupid for someone you love that it comes with a price tag? Mine's 100 grand. Yeah, $100,000 gone. And the twisted part, the part that really grinds in my gut when I'm trying to sleep, it's not even about the money. I mean, it's a crater in my savings and it stings like hell, but that's not the thing that keeps me staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. The real kicker is the slow dawning, ice-cold realization that I wasn't the supportive partner in her tragic entrepreneurial failure. I was the business plan. I was the sole investor in a scam for two, and I didn't even know I was the product. She called it a learning experience when it all supposedly fell apart. Cried on my shoulder about how the market was just too cruel. Her mentor, this slick bastard named Corey, even had the nerve to pat my back and tell me I was a good man for supporting her dream. Turns out her business didn't fail at all. It succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. Its only objective was to liquidate my future, and man, they were ruthlessly efficient. So yeah, this is that story, the one about how I paid 6 figures to learn that the woman I was trying to save was just robbing me in plain sight. My relationship with Amelia was, for a long time, the central pillar of my life. I'm a software development manager. My world is logical, structured, full of code, project timelines, and predictable outcomes. I live by spreadsheets and deadlines. It's a world that makes sense. Amelia was not. She was a whirlwind of passion, creativity, and what I used to call artistic temperament. I now know it was just chaos. She talked about art and aesthetics with a fire in her eyes that I found intoxicating, a stark contrast to the sterile glow of my dual monitors. She saw profound beauty in things I'd walk past without a second glance: the rust pattern on a fire hydrant, the way light filtered through a dusty window. To me, she was this brilliant, untamed force of nature, and I, with my steady 9-5 and stable life, felt like I could be her anchor. This is where my own particular brand of stupidity kicks in. I wasn't just in love with her, I was in love with the idea of being her rock. My therapist later called it the savior's delusion, and damn if he didn't nail it. I saw her constant struggles, the unpaid invoices from freelance gigs, the landlords who didn't understand her artistic process, the creative blocks that sent her into spirals of theatrical despair, not as red flags, but as my cues to enter stage left. I wasn't just her boyfriend, I was the guy who could protect this beautiful, supposedly fragile artist from the harsh realities of the world. It started small. A few $100s to cover her studio rent because a client was late with payment. She'd be so incredibly grateful, calling me her patron, her rock, making me feel 10 feet tall. Then it was a new laptop because she'd thrown her old one in a fit of creative frustration. I'd rationalize it. Well, she needs her tools. My friends would occasionally raise an eyebrow. She seems like a lot of work, man, one of them, Dave, said after she had a meltdown at a casual barbecue because the music wasn't inspiring. I'd get defensive. You don't get it, I'd say. She feels things more deeply than we do. I was defending my own judgment, my own fantasy. My value in my own head became inextricably linked to my ability to provide for her, to build a fortress of financial security around her so her genius could flourish. So when she came to me with the big one, the art curation company, I was already primed. It was a boutique firm, she explained, that would connect wealthy, soulless collectors with undiscovered, edgy artists. It was, like all her ideas, grand and romantic. She'd spend hours sketching out logos on napkins, describing the exclusive gallery openings she'd host, the champagne, the critics, the buzz. It sounded amazing. It also sounded incredibly expensive. And whenever the practicalities came up, a shadow would cross her face. The world just wants to crush beautiful things, Owen, she'd say, her voice soft and wounded, her eyes welling up just enough to make my chest ache. And my savior complex would flare up like a damn bonfire. I wouldn't let the world crush her. I would be the one to make it happen. I saw myself as the silent partner, the Medici to her Michelangelo. What a fucking fool. I wasn't just supporting her dream, I was propping up my own ego with my checkbook. I wasn't her partner, I was her first and easiest mark. The transition from a vague, napkin-sketched dream to a tangible business plan happened with the arrival of Corey. Amelia introduced him as her business mentor, a guru she'd met at some networking event for creative entrepreneurs. Corey was in his late 40s, with that specific kind of predatory polish you see on guys who sell timeshares or crypto schemes. He wore suits that were just a little too shiny, a watch that was a little too big, and he had a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He radiated an aura of success that, in hindsight, was pure performance art. He would come over for dinner and the whole dynamic of our apartment would shift. He'd ignore the takeout I'd bought and immediately start holding court, talking a language I barely understood but felt I was supposed to be impressed by. He'd pepper his sentences with jargon like angel investors, market disruption, and scaling the value proposition. He'd listen to Amelia's most fanciful ideas with a look of intense, serious consideration. "This is brilliant, Amelia," he'd say, steepling his fingers. "Absolutely brilliant, raw, untapped potential. All it needs is the right vehicle to launch it into the stratosphere." I was, of course, meant to be that vehicle. Corey was a master at playing on my savior complex while simultaneously making me feel like a provincial idiot. He'd turn to me and say things like, "Owen, a man in your position understands the importance of foundational capital. You can't build a skyscraper on a bed of sand, right?" It was framed as a compliment, but the subtext was clear. This is the big leagues, kid. Don't be the small-minded bean counter who holds back genius. He never asked me for money directly. That was Amelia's job. Corey's role was to build the stage and convince me the play was a masterpiece. He presented a formal-looking business proposal, full of charts and 5-year projections that looked impressive if you didn't know what you were looking at. I now know it was probably a template he downloaded online. It detailed the need for a $100,000 seed investment. It covered market research, brand development, artist acquisition, and a hefty consulting fee for Corey himself. That night after Corey left, Amelia was electric. She was practically vibrating with excitement. "This is it, Owen. This is real," she said, grabbing my hands. "He believes in me. He sees what you've always seen." Then came the final push. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a carefully crafted mix of hope and fear. "I'm so scared to ask," she whispered, "but you're the only one I trust. This isn't just an investment in a company, it's an investment in us." And that was the kill shot. My logical brain, the part of me that manages million-dollar software projects, was screaming. The risk was insane, the numbers were fuzzy, and the mentor was a walking red flag. But the savior, the man whose ego was tied to being her hero, won out. I went to my savings account, the money I'd been carefully putting away for a down payment on a house for our future, and I transferred the full amount, $100,000. I didn't feel like an investor. I felt like a knight who had just slain a dragon for his queen. The dragon, as it turned out, was my own common sense. The company, officially named Aura Curations, launched with a flurry of activity that seemed designed to look like progress without actually producing anything. An expensive website went live, full of stock photos of art galleries and vague, pretentious mission statements I'm pretty sure Amelia and Corey wrote while drunk. She leased a small, chic office space in a trendy part of town, a move Corey insisted was essential for brand perception. I visited once. It was mostly empty except for a sleek white desk for Amelia and a ridiculously overpriced espresso machine. The first few months were a masterclass in financial obfuscation. Whenever I'd ask about how the money was being spent, Amelia would get defensive or overwhelmed. "Owen, please, I'm handling it," she'd say, a frustrated sigh in her voice. "You're a software guy. You don't understand the nuances of artist retainers and gallery contracts. It's complicated." She made me feel like my questions were an attack on her competence, a distraction from her creative process. And because I was still deep in my role as the supportive partner, I'd back off. I didn't want to be the guy who micromanaged her dream into the ground. My complicity was rooted in this deliberate avoidance of conflict. Occasionally, there would be glimmers of what I thought was success. She'd come home buzzing, talking about a major meeting with a potential client or a breakthrough with a new artist she was courting. But it was always just talk. There were never any actual contracts, no celebratory dinners for a deal closed. The narrative was always one of being on the cusp of greatness. Then, about 8 months in, the tone began to shift. The excited calls became stressed and tearful. The vague updates about progress were replaced with vague updates about problems. "The market is just so much tighter than we anticipated," she'd tell me, her head in her hands. "Corey says we hit a patch of bad luck. The artists were proving flaky, the wealthy collectors unimaginative." It was a litany of external factors, a perfectly constructed narrative where she and Corey were the valiant heroes fighting against an uncaring world. The end came abruptly. I came home from work one evening to find her sitting on the couch in the dark, her face pale and tear-streaked. The chic office was gone, the website was down. It was over. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing about how she had failed, how she had lost everything, my money, her dream. She played the part of the tragic victim perfectly. She was so broken, so full of self-loathing that my own disappointment was instantly overshadowed by a wave of guilt. How could I be upset about the money when she was in so much pain? My role, once again, was to be the savior. I held her, told her it wasn't her fault, that she was brave for even trying. I spent the next few weeks consoling her, making her tea, and reassuring her that we would get through this. I was so focused on fixing her broken heart that I never once thought to ask for a single receipt. For about a month, our apartment was a mausoleum of grief. Amelia drifted through the rooms like a ghost, wrapped in a blanket of my misplaced sympathy. I walked on eggshells, careful not to say anything that might trigger another round of tears or self-recrimination. The $100,000 loss was a giant, unspoken presence in the room. I was already calculating how many years of extra work it would take to recover, but I never mentioned it. I was the good guy, the supportive partner. Then, slowly, the fog began to lift from her side of the bed. She started talking about the lessons learned. She'd say things like, "You know, my biggest mistake was thinking too big, too soon." It all sounded so reasonable, so mature. I was relieved, thinking she was healing. I was a fool. She wasn't healing, she was reloading. The pitch came on a Tuesday night. She'd made my favorite dinner, which was the first red flag. After we ate, she sat me down on the couch, taking my hands in hers. Her eyes were shining with a familiar, terrifying light. "Owen," she began, her voice earnest. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. Aura Curations was flawed, but the core idea was solid. I just needed a more focused approach, less overhead, more direct to client." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I knew where this was going. "I have a new plan," she continued, her grip tightening on my hands. "It's smaller, more manageable, a pop-up gallery concept. Corey thinks it's foolproof. The startup costs would be a fraction of what we spent before. We could—" I gently pulled my hands away. "Amelia," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I can't. The money is gone. I don't have anything left to give." Her face changed instantly. The soft, hopeful expression vanished, replaced by a look of cold, sharp disbelief. It was like a mask had fallen off. "You don't have anything left, or you don't want to," she snapped. "That's not fair," I said, my own frustration finally bubbling up. "It was $100,000, that's not a small thing." And then came the tears. But these weren't the sad, broken tears from a month ago. These were angry, accusatory tears. "So that's it," she cried, her voice rising. "One failure and you're out. I thought you believed in me. I thought you, of all people, understood that this is what it takes. You risk, you fail, and you get back up." She stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. "I pour my entire soul into this. I lose everything, and when I'm at my lowest point, you kick me. You're supposed to be my partner. I'm not asking for another $100,000. I'm just asking for a second chance. Is that so hard? I guess I know what your love is worth now. It has a limit. It has a price tag." She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. I just sat there, my head spinning. She had twisted the entire situation so expertly that I was now the villain. I was the unsupportive asshole who was abandoning her in her time of need. The argument left me reeling, filled with a toxic cocktail of anger, guilt, and profound self-doubt. The days after that fight were thick with a tense, suffocating silence. I was racked with guilt, just as she intended. Was I being unfair? Was I letting the financial loss poison my love for her? I was so deep in the fog of her manipulation that I was genuinely questioning my own reality. The savior in me was at war with the broke, exhausted man she had created. The breaking point didn't come from a dramatic confession, it came from a piece of paper. I was trying to get my finances in order, a grim task that involved staring at the smoking crater where my savings used to be. I was going through credit card statements online, categorizing expenses, trying to figure out a budget that wasn't completely depressing. That's when I saw it, a charge on my secondary card, the one I'd given her for business emergencies, that I didn't recognize. It was for $675.34 at a place called the Atherton Hotel. I'd never heard of the Atherton. A quick search revealed it was a swanky, high-end boutique hotel downtown, the kind of place with a rooftop bar and $1,000-a-night suites. The charge date was what made my blood run cold. It was from the week she told me the company had gone bankrupt. My first thought was fraud. My heart was actually pounding with a strange sense of relief. Okay, someone stole the card number. That's a hassle, but it's explainable. I called the credit card company, but they confirmed the physical card had been used with a signature. My next call was to the hotel itself. I was polite, explaining the situation. Hi, I'm just trying to verify a charge on my card. I think it might be fraudulent. The front desk clerk was professional and efficient. Of course, sir, let me pull that up for you. The charge is for dinner and drinks at our rooftop lounge, The Pinnacle. The charge was made by Amelia Vance. The name hit me like a physical blow. Amelia was there, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Yes, sir, the clerk said, her tone cheerful and oblivious. She was a guest here that week. I'm just checking the folio notes. Ah, here it is. This charge was part of a split bill. It looks like Miss Vance and a Mr. Corey Evans were staying in the celebration suite. They requested their room and spa services be billed to Mr. Evans's corporate account, and their food and beverage expenses be split between their two cards. This was Miss Vance's portion. Time stopped. The clerk kept talking, but her voice faded into a dull buzz. Celebration suite, Mr. Corey Evans, split bill. The words echoed in the sudden, vast emptiness of my mind. They weren't drowning their sorrows. They were celebrating the successful completion of their project. The project was me. The business plan was to fleece the loving, supportive, idiot boyfriend. The bankruptcy wasn't a failure. It was the final, successful stage of the heist. The tears, the grief, the accusations of me being unsupportive, it was all theater. A final act to ensure I wouldn't look too closely at the books while they were sipping champagne on a rooftop, spending my money. I don't remember hanging up the phone. I just remember sitting there, the credit card statement glowing on the screen, feeling the last 10 months of my life reconfigure themselves into a new, horrific shape. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a crime, and I was the only victim. There was no shouting match, no dramatic confrontation. The moment the truth clicked into place, all the anger, the hurt, the confusion, it didn't explode. It collapsed inward, cooled, and solidified into something hard and clear: resolve. My savior's delusion shattered, and for the first time in years, I saw Amelia not as a fragile artist to be protected, but as a predator. And you don't reason with a predator, you protect yourself. My first call wasn't to her. It was to Dave, the friend who'd warned me she was a lot of work. He was a corporate lawyer. I laid out the whole story, my voice flat and detached, from the initial investment to the hotel bill. He was quiet for a long moment, and then he just said, "Owen, this is wire fraud. Potentially grand larceny. This isn't a breakup, man. This is a crime scene." His words were the final validation I needed. This was out of the realm of relationship drama. This was a legal matter. The next 48 hours were a blur of cold, methodical action. I was running on pure adrenaline. Following Dave's advice, I started gathering evidence. I downloaded every bank statement showing the transfers to her company account. I screenshotted every text message and email where we discussed the investment, where she assured me it was a legitimate business. I got a certified copy of that hotel bill. I even called the hotel back, recording the conversation this time, and had another clerk, equally oblivious, confirm the details of the celebration suite stay for Amelia Vance and Corey Evans. Each document was a brick in the wall I was building between my past and my future. While Amelia was out for the afternoon at a yoga class, probably meeting Corey to plan their next move. I had the locks on our apartment changed. I went through the place like a machine, pulling all of her belongings out of closets and drawers. Her clothes, her art books, her stupid, overpriced espresso machine. I packed everything into boxes and garbage bags. I didn't do it with anger, but with a strange, chilling sense of detachment. It was like cleaning out a stranger's apartment. I piled everything neatly by the front door. When she came home that evening, humming to herself and her key didn't work, the confusion on her face must have been something to see. She called my phone once, twice, a dozen times. I didn't answer. Instead, she received an email. The subject line was, "Notice of legal action and termination of tenancy." The body of the email was from my lawyer, Dave. It was cold, formal, and utterly brutal. It informed her that she was to cease all contact with me immediately. It detailed the evidence of financial fraud that had been collected. And it stated in no uncertain terms that a police report had been filed, with a copy of the report attached as a PDF. Her belongings, the email concluded, would be held for 30 days before being disposed of. It was a scorched earth policy, no room for argument, no chance for tears or manipulation. I didn't just leave her. I erased her from my life and erected a legal firewall to make sure she could never get back in. It wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. It's been a month now. The legal process is grinding forward, a slow, impersonal machine that I'm grateful for. Dave tells me it's a strong case. There have been angry, rambling emails from Amelia and a threatening letter from a lawyer Corey hired, but it's all just noise on the other side of the wall I built. I sit here now in my quiet, half-empty living room. The space her things used to occupy is a constant, physical reminder of the void she left, but it's not a void of heartbreak. It's just empty. There was no victorious feeling, no thrill of righteous justice. When the dust settled, all I was left with was a profound, hollowed-out exhaustion. I had won. I had escaped. But what I had won was a quiet room and a mountain of trust issues. The city lights twinkle outside my window just as they always have, but my world feels smaller, dimmer. I thought that uncovering the truth and taking decisive action would bring a sense of closure, of release. But it didn't. It just left me with this empty calm. The storm is over, but the landscape has been flattened. I look at the future and I don't see a new beginning. I just see a long, quiet road of rebuilding, not just my finances, but my own judgment. The savior is dead. I killed him myself. I'm just not sure who's left in his place.